Imagine a time when the world was ruled by empires that stretched across continents. Kings, warriors, and conquerors clashed in battles that shaped the course of history. But amidst these powerful figures, there was one woman who stood tall, a queen whose name struck fear into even the mightiest of rulers. Her name was Tomyris. Queen Tomyris wasn't just a leader. She was a force of nature. As the ruler of the etched, she faced one of history's greatest conquerors, Cyrus the Great of Persia. And she didn't just fight him, she defeated him. But who was Tomyris? How did this queen of the steppes bring down the unstoppable Persian Empire? Was it strategy, strength, or sheer willpower that led to one of the most legendary victories in ancient history? Get ready to journey back in time to uncover the incredible story of Queen Tomyris, a tale of courage, betrayal, and a battle that changed the fate of empires. The 6th century BCE was a time of colossal empires and ceaseless conquests. The Achaemenid Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great, had emerged as a dominant force, expanding across vast swathes of the ancient world. But while kings and emperors carved out their empires with sword and strategy, there were regions that resisted their grasp. Places where the love of freedom burned brighter than the lure of conquest. One of these was the land of the etched. Cyrus the Great was no ordinary king. His rise to power began with the unification of the Persian tribes, but it was his brilliant military campaigns that truly defined his legacy. In less than 3 decades, Cyrus forged an empire that stretched from the Mediterranean to the Indus River, a realm so vast it would later become the template for Alexander the Great's ambitions. Cyrus wasn't just a conqueror, he was a visionary. His policies of tolerance and governance made him a beloved ruler in many lands. But despite his successes, there was one people who refused to bow to him: the etched. The etched were a fierce nomadic people who lived in the rugged steppes east of the Caspian Sea. Their way of life revolved around freedom, mobility, and self-reliance. Unlike the urbanized cities of the Persian Empire, the etched thrived in the open plains, where their survival depended on their herds and their skill in battle. Their warriors were legendary, masters of the bow and horseback combat. To the etched, the concept of subjugation was unthinkable. They lived by their own laws, governed by their elders and their leaders. And at the head of their people stood their queen, Tomyris. She embodied the very spirit of the etched: resilient, defiant, and unyielding. For Cyrus, the etched were more than just a rebellious tribe. They were an obstacle in his vision of an empire without borders. And so he turned his attention to the steppes, determined to bring these defiant people under Persian rule. But little did he know, his ambition would lead him to one of the most infamous battles in history, against a queen who would not falter. History remembers many great conquerors, kings who carved their names into the world with blood and steel. But among them stands a queen who was never conquered, never broken. Her name was Tomyris, ruler of the etched, a warrior queen whose legend echoes across time. Born into a world of warriors and nomads, Tomyris was not a queen by privilege, but by strength and will. She ruled the etched, a fierce and independent people who lived by the code of the steppes, where freedom was life and submission was death. Unlike the grand palaces of Persian kings, Tomyris' throne was the open sky. She led her people not from behind gilded walls, but from the battlefield, riding alongside her warriors, sharing in their struggles and victories. Her rule was built on respect, not fear. A leader who fought as fiercely as she commanded, Tomyris was not only a warrior, but also a strategist, renowned for her wisdom and unshakable resolve. She understood the dangers of Cyrus the Great's growing empire and knew that resisting him would be their greatest challenge. When Cyrus sought to conquer her people, he did not face a nation fractured by fear. He faced a queen who saw through his deceptions and stood unwavering in the face of his threats. Tomyris would not bow to Persia, no matter the cost. To this day, Tomyris stands as one of the greatest warrior queens in history, a symbol of defiance, vengeance, and unyielding strength. She was more than a leader. She was a force of nature. Her story is one of resistance against overwhelming power, a tale of a ruler who refused to be another conquest in Cyrus's empire. Was she simply a queen defending her people? Or was she fate's answer to a king who thought himself unstoppable? One thing is certain, History may have been written by kings, but Tomyris ensured that it would never forget the name of a queen. Cyrus the Great was a man who had never known defeat. His empire stretched from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River, swallowing kingdom after kingdom. And now, his eyes turned to the steppes, to the land of the Massagetes. But this was no ordinary conquest. This time, he would not face another king. He would face a queen. Cyrus was not just a warrior. He was a master of strategy, both on and off the battlefield. He knew that the Massagetes were fierce and independent, unwilling to bow to any ruler. A direct assault would be costly, even for him. So, he chose a different path. Deception. He sent envoys to Tomyris, offering her what he called a union, a marriage proposal. A ploy disguised as diplomacy. If she accepted, the Massagetes would become part of Persia without a single drop of blood spilled. But Tomyris saw the truth. I will not marry Cyrus. I will not surrender my people. Cyrus's proposal was rejected. The Massagetes would not bow, and Tomyris made that clear. But the Persian king was not one to accept defiance lightly. If he could not take her land with words, he would take it with war. But even in war, Cyrus relied on cunning over brute force. He devised a trap, one that played on human weakness. He ordered a lavish feast to be set up at the border of the Massagetes lands, a feast filled with fine wines, roasted meats, and silks. And then, he withdrew his forces, leaving the banquet behind as bait. Tomyris' son, Spargopeises, led a division of warriors to investigate. The feast seemed like an offering from the gods, a rare luxury for a nomadic people used to harsh conditions. But in their moment of indulgence, Cyrus's army struck. Spargopeises was captured. The trap had worked. Cyrus had his leverage. And now, the fate of the Massagetes rested in the hands of a mother, a queen, who had just lost her son to the greatest conqueror of her time. The battle that followed would not just decide the fate of the Massagetes. It would define the legacy of Queen Tomyris for all time. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the silence shattered with the thunderous charge of war. The Persian soldiers, armed with spears and shields polished by ambition, advanced in tight, organized formations. Across the field, the Massagetes erupted in a furious counterattack. Their arrows cut through the air like lightning, and the sound of hooves pounding the soft earth set the rhythm of chaos. Queen Tomyris, astride her powerful warhorse, led her people into the fray with unparalleled resolve. She directed her warriors with swift, decisive gestures, each order a spark that ignited a blazing trail of defiance. The battle lines blurred as strategy met raw courage. Every swing of the sword and every release of an arrow a testament to their determination. In the heat of combat, it was clear that brute strength alone would not decide this day. Tomyris employed tactics honed by years of leading her nomadic warriors. She ordered sudden flanking maneuvers, drawing the Persian forces into traps set among the rugged terrain. Her command was not just of body and blade, but of the spirit. Every warrior under her banner fought not for conquest, but for the freedom of their people, a freedom that no empire could ever cage. But even the fiercest battle can pivot on a single moment, a moment that sears itself into history. In the chaotic melee, Tomyris' son, Spargopeises, led a division to scout the enemy's flank. In that fatal hour, the trap Cyrus had set bore its bitter fruit. Surrounded and outnumbered, Spargopeises was captured by the relentless Persians. The loss of Spargopeises was not merely the capture of a warrior. It was a wound that cut deep into the heart of a queen and her people. In that single moment, the tide of the battle took on a new meaning. It was the personal sacrifice that transformed the conflict from a clash of armies to a battle for honor, vengeance, and the very soul of the Massagetes. Standing amid the carnage and despair, Queen Tomyris felt the full weight of her loss. But from grief surged a fire more potent than any weapon, a vow of retribution. With her eyes burning like twin infernos, she declared that Cyrus's treachery would never go unanswered. For my son, for my people, I will have my revenge. But from grief surged a fire more potent than any weapon, a vow of retribution. The field became a crucible where destiny was forged in fire and blood, and the legacy of Queen Tomyris was etched into the annals of time. The Battle of the Araxes was not just a turning point in a war, it was the moment when a mother's loss became the catalyst for a legendary uprising. And as the sun set on that blood-soaked field, the legacy of Tomyris was sealed with a promise of vengeance that would echo through the ages. The sun rose once more over the steppes, but this time it rose on vengeance. After the death of her son, Tomyris was no longer fighting just for her people. She was fighting for justice, for retribution, and she would not rest until Cyrus the Great paid the price. Cyrus, sensing the storm he had awakened, rallied his army once more. But something was different now. The Persians no longer marched with invincibility in their stride. They had wounded a lioness, and now faced the fury of a mother scorned. The two armies met in one of the bloodiest confrontations the ancient world would ever know. The Massagetæ charged like a wave of thunder, their horses swift, their arrows unerring. They moved with purpose, not just to win, but to end. Tomyris rode at the front, her voice rising above the clash of steel, rallying her warriors with every strike. This was not just war, this was reckoning. The Persian lines began to falter. Cyrus, usually the calm within chaos, found himself facing an enemy that would not yield. An enemy that fought not for land or gold, but for pride, for loss, for love. And then Cyrus fell. History does not record the exact blade, the precise moment, but legend tells a different tale. After the dust of battle had settled, Queen Tomyris stood over the lifeless body of the greatest conqueror of her time. And then she did something no history book can forget. She took a wineskin, once filled with the finest Persian wine, and ordered it filled with Cyrus's blood. You thirsted for blood, now drink your fill. This was not merely vengeance. It was a message, warning to all who would mistake her people's freedom for weakness. The mighty Cyrus the Great, whose empire had stretched across continents, had been brought low, not by an emperor, but by a queen, a mother, a warrior, a legend. History often forgets the names of those who dared to defy empires, but not Tomyris. Her story was written down by Herodotus, the father of history himself. Even he could not overlook the queen who defied a godlike king. Even Persian records, though quiet and restrained, couldn't deny the power she wielded, and the mark she left on their greatest ruler. During the Renaissance, artists brought her legend to life, brushstrokes capturing her fury, her sorrow, her strength. Tomyris wasn't erased from history. She carved her name into it. Tomyris became more than a ruler. She became a symbol of defiance in the face of overwhelming power, of justice over conquest, of a mother who stood against the greatest empire of her time and won. For women across the ages, she became a rare beacon of leadership in a world written by men. In art, she's painted as regal and wrathful, crowned in gold, drenched in vengeance. In literature, she's remembered as a force of nature, unyielding, unbroken.
Even today, her name stirs the imagination. She sits found in novels, theater, even in modern retellings of warrior queens who refuse to bow. From the windswept steppes to the blood-stained banks of the Araxes, Queen Tomyris carved her legacy, not with stone or scroll, but with defiance. She stood against the greatest conqueror of her age. She fought for her people, for her son, for justice, and she won. History remembers the empires that rose, but legends are made from those who dared to bring them down. Queen Tomyris reminds us that even the mightiest of empires can fall to those who fight for freedom. If you were moved by this story of courage, vengeance, and legacy, give this video a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, because legends like Tomyris deserve to be remembered.